Hello, my name is Thomas. Welcome to British Culture, Albion Never Dies. Today I'm looking at Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, a book that appears in the movie No Time to Die, the last James Bond film starring Daniel Craig. It's one of many books scattered around his retirement home in Jamaica. This one in particular is very visible. Before the film had even come out, we saw some wonderful publicity shots of his Jamaican retirement home, and I had the opportunity to get hold of some of these books, copies of the books, not the actual ones you see in the film, but the same book. I read them, and I did a series of 5 videos before all about those books. I was trying to work out if it gave us some kind of clue as to what was coming up in the film. And then I saw the film, it's more than a year later, and I've been reflecting on this, and I'm still reading books that we saw in his home. It's been a fun way to guide my own reading. I read quite a lot, but this has been a great way to branch out and read books that I might not otherwise have read. This is a book that I probably wouldn't have read, or at least not for a very long time, if it hadn't been there, so I'm very glad it was there because I enjoyed reading it. I'm going to talk first of all about the book, then maybe how it relates to James Bond, and then see if we can get some kind of synthesis of, is this a believable book for him to read in retirement? So first of all, what is the book about? Is it particularly about Zen? No. Is it particularly about motorbikes? Not really, and certainly not really about the maintenance of them. It's not some kind of book that's a guide or instructional. It is it's a flow of consciousness novel. It is one person's personal account of a journey going across America. It is remembrances of time past. He calls it Chautauqua. It is one narrative telling a tale from his own point of view, and it's really interesting. A bit like, say, A Brilliant Darkness, or a bit like Time's Arrow, 2 previous books I looked at. This is a book about a man who has something in his past he needs to explore. We see it in the form of a ghost called Freydis. This ghost seems to follow him wherever he goes, but this ghost is in fact a facet of his past life. He's traveling with friends. Those friends have very different ideas about motorcycle maintenance, and this may seem like a surface level thing, but in fact, as we get into it, we discover more and more deep philosophical differences between them. And this is interesting because the main character on the face of it shouldn't know so much about philosophy. He shouldn't know quite as much as he appears to, but of course he reveals himself as the story goes on. In many ways it reminded me of John le Carré's A Perfect Spy. Wouldn't you have a narrative told by a main character, and perhaps you can't quite trust the narrator himself? I really enjoy the unraveling of who he is, what he is, and yes, Zen is touched on, as is Greek philosophy. Motorcycle maintenance is touched on as the main character goes on this journey across America, but mainly the discovery of himself. There's a wonderful little chapter which, in a movie, I wonder if it would be cut out as superfluous, but in a novel, is very affecting as he watches a sunset from a Californian mountain. Having done that myself, I don't know, it just really connected with me. I really enjoyed it. Of course, it doesn't depend on your personal experience, because a large part of that book, a large part of this book, is all about the end of an era. Flower power is wilting. This is set in perhaps the late 60s, early 70s. It was published in 74, and it's really about the end of that hippie era and the need to find something new, some new direction. There is very definitely a change coming, and the main character is very aware of it and not aware of what it might be. He's grappling with this brave new world that's coming. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and is this a book that James Bond would read? It is a very famous book. It's a best-selling book. It's sold all around the world, and I can see how it would be on an eventual list for James Bond. Perhaps there is something in that facet of a past self chasing him. I think it's really interesting that this book is very prominent in the scene where James Bond comes face to face with the new 007. As I say, this book has a facet of the main character's past self following him. He used to be really good at something, then there was something that happened, and now he's leading a very different type of life. So again, very similar to James Bond. He used to be the best. He used to be 007. At the beginning of No Time to Die, we see him moving on from that and taking a very different and much simpler life. How does it end? Well, watch the movie and read the book. Do they go together? I think in an interesting thematic way they do. I think you could very definitely enjoy the book and not enjoy the film, and vice versa. I really liked it. Will I read it again? I don't know. I think I'd give it time, maybe time enough for life events to happen, see if I see it differently. I'm certainly going to hang on to it. And would I recommend it to others? As I say, it's a big, big book comparatively to the Ian Fleming books. But yes, if you have the time, relax, sit back, maybe have some Blackwell rum, as James Bond does in the film, or some Johnny Walker Black Label, whatever is your preferred choice. This is one to relax and enjoy, have some quiet time with. As I say, I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad it appeared in No Time to Die because that led to me discovering it. Only a good thing. If you want to hear more about James Bond's retirement reading, then you can check out the link to the podcast episode, which is in the description. Take a look back at the previous 5 videos, but there's no need to watch them in order, just watch whichever one captures your interest. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.